Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Newcastle's Conversation with the Supervisor 2022. My name is Lee Barth, and I'm the first Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Newcastle. It is our pleasure to welcome you to the Conversation with the Supervisor, an event we try to hold once or twice a year. And today, Supervisor Lisa Katz, in her inaugural address with the League, we'll discuss some of the major issues on our town's agenda, and you will have an opportunity to ask any questions. A little bit about the League. The League is a grassroots organization that promotes the active and informed participation of all citizens in government. We do not support or oppose political candidates or parties. Voter education has been one of the League's most important functions. The League is a recognized leader in good government issues such as election and campaign finance reform. On a local level, our activities include the publication of voters' guides for spring and fall elections and candidates forums. The format tonight is as following. Lisa will give us an overview of some of the important issues facing Newcastle, and then the audience can ask questions through the chat function. And we do have a few guidelines. We will start with a question from the League, and then additional questions should be about general topics of general community interest. And so now, Lisa, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me on this very unspring-like day today. So hi, everybody. I am Lisa Katz, your town supervisor. And for those of you tuning in, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And thank you also to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's session. You guys really do such a service to the community, and we really appreciate all that you do. So anyway, I'm excited for my first conversation with the supervisor. I've been jealous, having been on the town board for the past 8 years, that now finally it's my turn. I get to do one. And I hope that I'm giving you all the information that you want and need tonight, but if not, one of the things that's very important to me is transparency and openness, so you can always reach out to me. It has only been a few short months. I took office with the newly elected town board in January. Well, I was a couple of weeks earlier. So it's only been a few short months, but we've done a lot. I guess the first thing to talk about is COVID-19. It's been a difficult few years, obviously. Thank you to everyone who kind of kept our town running, who helped your fellow neighbors. That's what I love, about our community. And in December, we actually dedicated a remembrance garden right in front of Town Hall to remember those who suffered a loss or hardship during the pandemic, and to honor those who gave themselves to support the community during these difficult times. I think you can actually find the dedication ceremony online, but I urge you all, it's actually beautiful. It'll be much nicer in the spring than it was in December, but there are trees with plaques and benches commemorating this, and I urge you all to go and look at it. It's really a lovely space. We are mask optional now in Town Hall. COVID numbers have gone down, and it does seem that even though there are new variants that may be coming, they seem to be, while highly contagious, much less, people are getting much less sick, especially those who are vaccinated and boosted. So if you have not been, I still urge you to do that. But along with that, we have a few great things to announce. And first is that our Memorial Day Parade is back. That's going to be held on May 30th, I think beginning at 10:30. So we're really excited because that's a wonderful event for our community, and we're glad that we could really bring it back in full force this year. We also will have our 9/11 Memorial in September, and we are bringing back our volunteer recognition dinner, which is currently slated for October, so there's a while to go for that, but we're excited that we can start to really bring all these events that really joined us together as a community back to town, and hopefully the pandemic still allows us to do all that. So one thing, when I took office in January with the newly elected board members, the first thing I did was really set the tone for the coming year. And that is so important to me. And And I said then, and I'll continue to say that my hope was that as a community, we can really embrace the importance of treating each other with kindness and respect. Two things that had fallen by the wayside, I thought, over the past few years. And as I've said before, I believe that no matter the differences in all of our passions, values, and opinions, we all want what's best for each other and our community, and just to treat each other with kindness and respect. So I want to reiterate that that's something that's really forming all of my choices going forward over the next 2 years and maybe longer. So I wanted to put that up there out front. And to that end, we actually instituted a few things recently. The first is Sips with the Supervisor. And I've been holding these informal kind of coffee talks called Sip with the Supervisor each month to really increase dialogue and the opportunity for face-to-face discussions with town government. And I have loved talking to everyone who has shown up at those events. It's completely informal. People sit down. Sometimes they just listen. Sometimes they have things to say, either complaints or things to discuss, or just want to ask questions. And they've been really wonderful events. In fact, our next one, I missed the one in March, but it will be this Friday, which is, I believe, the 31st or maybe April 1st. So it's going to be close to each month. But it'll be this Friday. Stay tuned for the time and location. I think it's going to be around 11 a.m. The next is a segment I love, which is the Newcastle Community Corner. And I added that to every town board public meeting agenda. And what that really is a way to kind of foster our sense of community and an opportunity for the town to announce birthdays, anniversaries, promotions, other celebratory events that really just keep us connected with each other. And it's been wonderful. And I've loved receiving all of the pictures that you guys have sent me of kids or adults in front of the electronic sign downtown, down in Chappaqua Hamlet in front of Bell, that's kind of announcing your special day. And that's been wonderful. So I would love to continue that. Certainly, I'll give you the email address now, though it's in every supervisor's report I put out, but it's communitycorner@mynewcastle.org. And I love hearing from you and scheduling the announcements and putting up on the board. So please keep it up. The next thing we did was also in the vein of expression and respect, is we adopted a new social media policy in town. And that's something actually our ethics committee had asked us to do years ago. So we finally were able to do that. It's a communication and social media policy, and it provides guidelines for town employees and elected officials when deciding what information is published on behalf of the town on its communication and social media platforms. Now, let me be clear. We are not telling you what you can say. You can say whatever you want. This is not meant to stifle freedom of expression in any way. But we did want to make sure that we were able to, enable and encourage civil communication and positive engagement with members of the public coming from the town, and to establish really official channels of communication with town government. For instance, I love when everyone tags me on Facebook, but I cannot guarantee that I'm seeing your email, your post. So if there's something important you need to let me or the town board know, you should definitely go through our email channels. Again, we wanted to really encourage the dissemination of factual information from the town and really promote greater understanding by the public and participation in town governance. To that end, we also appointed the ethics board as the arbiter of this, and they will be able to encompass advisory opinions with respect to our new social media policy if someone thinks it's violated. So we actually increased the membership of the ethics board from 5 to 7 members and expanded their scope so that they could do that. So I think it's a great policy. Like all policy, everything may need to be massaged as it becomes utilized and we see how it works in real life. But I do think it was a great step forward for the town. We're also right now looking at amending the town sign law. So if you will recall, during the election, there was a sudden enforcement of the town sign law last year. And so I thought it was important to look at that again and and make sure that at a time when no one's running right now, that we could spend the time to really make sure we can find the appropriate balance between ensuring that our town is not inundated with signs everywhere and the need to push out relevant information, local events, and other items to the town. So, for instance, as currently drafted, our town law does not allow, for instance, the farmer's market to put a sign on public property advertising the market, or for the Greeley sports boosters to advertise an upcoming varsity game. So we wanted to figure out how we can massage this within the law to really allow for what we want, because we want those kind of signs. We want election signs. We want to be able to exercise freedom of speech on our own properties, but we also want to balance that with not, having signs everywhere in every public right of way. So one of the things we're also looking at with that is just adding a uniform setback for sign placement. So before it was saying it can't be in the right of way and on your own property. Not everyone knows where their property technically begins and the public right of way is. So what we're looking at now is a uniform sign placement. So maybe saying on your property, it just has to be 3 feet back, unless there's going to be some sort of safety issue. If you're on a corner and it's blocking sight lines, obviously we can't do that. So we're looking at that now to try to make this clearer and really find that balance. We are going to continue discussion of this law in coming weeks. We will have a public hearing on it. We look forward to public comments. Certainly it's not over, but it's something we're really looking at. So moving on, let's talk about rezoning, which I know is probably on the forefront of everyone's mind. So the voters spoke, I believe, in the election and essentially said no to the form-based code. But that doesn't mean that this town board does not want to look at what are the goals of our comprehensive plan. We want to still bring vitality to our downtown hamlets, increase housing stock, and provide residential and opportunities as well as recreational opportunities. But we need to do that in a way that the town can support. So in other words, we need to make sure our infrastructure is appropriate for development. It doesn't significantly adversely impact schools, traffic, density. So we're looking at all of that now. We held a joint work session a few weeks ago with our planning board, and for over 2 hours, we discussed thoughts about rezoning options specifically for North Greeley Avenue right now in the Chappaqua Hamlet, and also ways to streamline the planning board process when a project does come before them. We are also considering right now reenacting a development moratorium on properties greater than 3,000 square feet, limited to North Greeley Avenue in Chappaqua, as we consider rezoning for this area. Now, any rezoning is going to be done with community input. And I would urge everybody listening that if you have questions about this, address the town board. Do not look at what people are saying on Facebook, because it's not always true. We will be looking at proposals as they come in, and also with resident input, what we think we can handle. The reason why a lot of people didn't like the form-based code, because it was development as of right that may have been too large for what the town could really handle. So we're going to try to do it on a much smaller scale and do what's right and makes sense. In terms of, and it's only going to be limited right now to North Greeley Avenue, not the 72-acre downtown hamlet. When it comes to town-owned land, which actually is a majority of the Chappaqua Hamlet, we will not be doing anything without a public charrette process. And that will take a while. It's probably not going to be done while in the next year, but we certainly want to make sure that a community vision is established before we go further and allow developers to develop there. One thing I am proud of, and to me, this was really, there was a gap in our town's affordable housing policy. And we did not require a minimum number of affordable housing units to be built in multifamily housing in certain areas of the downtown Chappaqua Hamlet. So last week, 4 of the 5 town board members, the 5th was not in attendance at the meeting, approved an amendment to Chapter 60 of our town code, which required a 10% affordable, affirmatively furthering fair housing, that's AFFH, units in multifamily buildings in the BR and BRP zoning districts in both the Chappaqua and Millwood hamlets. So I think that this really is sending a message to future developers that we value affordable housing and really closing a loophole that would have allowed them to build without that. This doesn't mean that that is operating in a silo. The board is going to continue to consider future incentives and means to really incentivize affordable housing and development. One thing that also came up recently, which was sort of exciting, is that the owners of the Millwood Lumber Yard in Millwood came before the town board, I think it was last week, and talked about a plan they had to develop that property to multifamily housing and some retail. So they just really, it was a very, very preliminary presentation to the town board. Certainly there's a long way to go there, but it's exciting to see that people do want to develop and really help to bring vitality to our downtown hamlet. So they will certainly be working with the planning board and the zoning board to effectuate their vision in a way that makes sense for the town. Speaking of the town, we have a few new stores coming in. They either are here or they will be here in the near future. House to Home in the Chappaqua Hamlet and G-Fit recently opened, and we are looking forward to welcoming Sweet Green up at Chappaqua Crossing, Mentors Mediterranean Steakhouse up near Walgreens, and also Green and Tonic, Bentley Jane, The Collective by JabFit, Mathnasium, and Basso 56, all in the downtown Chappaqua Hamlet. So we are very excited to see these new stores coming and restaurants, and I'm hoping that that's going to bring a lot of vitality to our downtown as well. So let's talk now. I have a list of things that people have been emailing me about. So let's talk about cell service. That's a big topic on everyone's list right now. I have been in touch with Verizon and AT&T regarding issues with their cellular service throughout town. Verizon has been a bit more responsive than AT&T, but we are working at it. A few things, and you guys get to hear it hot off the presses since you joined us tonight. A couple exciting things. First, Mount Kisco Town Board, they just approved a new cell tower that's going to be going in the back of Leonard Park. So they promised me it's going to look like a tree and not be ugly. It won't be built, unfortunately, for a little while, probably within the year, though. And that should help with cell service on 128. But more importantly, and I just found out about this a couple of hours ago, we were just accepted, Newcastle, to participate in the Northern Westchester County Wireless Master Plan project. For some reason, our town was overlooked when they started this project. We found out about it recently, pushed to get included, and just found out that we are. And this is really a comprehensive wireless telecommunications study in our area that we are now able to advocate on behalf of Newcastle. So I'm so excited. And it's really looking at, what are issues with wireless? How can they optimize telecommunications here? Identify where we can put that and what can be done. If you hear from a company called Cityscape Consultants, they're the ones who are going to be conducting this study. It's very important to talk to them about issues with your cell service, where it's cutting out, where you can't be hearing people. And they will be really studying and assessing all the current commercial wireless deployment activity in our area and make suggestions for future wireless deployment. And they are compiling its findings into a comprehensive master plan for wireless telecommunications infrastructure in Northern Westchester. Now, to be part of this survey, this study, it costs $25,000. But good news, the county is actually picking up that entire fee to allow us to join in this study. So this is very exciting. I don't think it's a quick fix, but it's certainly going to get us well on our way to making sure that we get appropriate wireless service up here. I feel like I always say to my husband, we were years ago on the top of, Machu Picchu in Peru, and I could make a cell phone call, but I somehow can't make it down the street from here. So it's time that we fix that. What else? I'm proud of our town for really advocating recently for some issues that were in the state budget. I'm sure you all heard, and I certainly got it out there, about issues with an ADU legislation and transit-oriented development that was in the budget. This is different from, Pete Harkum's bill that is currently in the Senate and Assembly. This was something that was in the budget, had funding, and would have been passed as soon as the budget's passed. There were a lot of issues with it. I don't really want to go through all of it now because it's a very long conversation. But suffice it to say that through appropriate advocacy with our residents who got very involved, as well as many supervisors and mayors from our neighboring municipalities, we actually were able to get this taken out of the budget so that it can go through an appropriate legislative process. So I'm proud of our town for really being able to advocate on our behalf there. All right, let's talk about the environment. So a few things. EV chargers. Today we installed the last of our new 10 dual port electric vehicle chargers. Those are available in 5 separate locations now throughout town. The Chappaqua train station, Town Hall, the Woodburn Avenue Municipal Parking Lot, Millwood Park, and Amsterdam Park. They are going to allow us to track and monitor connectivity. We will be charging, I think it's 22 cents per kilowatt hours for these EV chargers. We did order signs to tell people do not park here unless you have an electric vehicle that you'll be plugging in. And those will be going up in the next week or so. So that is great that we were able to get those. We also, some of you may have heard, it's a little confusing. So we are in a stormwater district, and the Department of Environmental Conservation really put in, they're advocating for really what are unfunded mandates right now that we just looked at. This is a proposal, and it's estimated to cost Newcastle close to $7 million over the next 5 years of this permit, which isn't including additional costs to residents, such as the requirement to pump your septic system every year instead of every 3 years. So we drafted, and again, all of our neighboring municipalities also drafted similar letters as they affected their towns that said you need to figure out how we're paying for this, because to ask us to make up essentially $7 million and still stay within a tax cap is very, very difficult. So we are hoping that they will get back to us. We are also contacting our state legislators to speak out against these unfunded mandates and see how we can come to an appropriate compromise here. One thing you also may have seen, our state stretch code, New York State stretch code. So we adopted this back in, I want to say, December, where we were early adopters of the New York State stretch code. Now, we were told, we adopted the form language that we were given, but then the State Code Council changed their mind and decided that language needed to be modified. Now, in order to modify that language, we have to first repeal a local law. That does not mean that we are cutting back on environmental initiatives, but the way the way the process works is we need to appeal the law that adopted the state stretch code, and then we can adopt new legislation as provided by the State Code Council. Because there are new members of the town board, we asked NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, to come last week and talk to us about that, especially given the rising costs of inflation and supply chain issues. We wanted to make sure that we're not adopting something that will potentially be good for our environment, but will really have a significant adverse impact on residents. So we asked them to come talk to us. They did that last week. And we have now set a public hearing April 5th to discuss this. I can't speak for the town board, but we certainly will be looking at adopting the proposed new legislation on that. We also are considering designating Newcastle as a Bee City USA affiliate in an effort to sustain these vital and endangered pollinators. If approved, we would agree to foster pollinator-friendly habitats of native plants and trees, among other things. I also asked them to look at becoming a monarch butterfly town as well. And we're looking into this, but the board is generally in favor of this proposal, and we will be talking about that again at our next public meeting. And then finally, we also heard last week from representatives of Sustainable Westchester to discuss the aggregated Westchester Power Program for the supply of electric power in Newcastle. Everyone's Con Ed bills have gone up. Many towns, they have gone up significantly because they did not adopt this Westchester power program like we did. So while some of our bills, if you opted out of this program and you have Con Ed as your supplier, your bills probably skyrocketed. Many people who are enrolled in this program, which again, it was a default, you automatically were opted in unless you chose to opt out. It actually is a fixed cost for our electric power. Now, unfortunately, that contract is set to expire on June 30th. So we are talking about renewing that. With them, I'm anticipating that rates will go up because they have gone up everywhere. And once we're no longer locked into the pre-negotiated rate, they will go up. But what is good is that since we're part of a consortium, we can get better rates. And we have elected in the past, and I imagine we will continue to do so, to default to the 100% renewable energy supply instead of the brown energy that is also an option. So stay tuned for that as we discuss next steps to renew that contract, and we will hear soon what those new rates are going to be. Airplanes. I attended a meeting a couple weeks ago. We are trying to engage communities around the airport on a proposed alternative flight path that was suggested to the county by the Westchester Aviation Association last year. That proposal would diversify approaches for aircraft landing at Westchester County Airport, and it would direct trains to track down Route 684 into the airport during good weather conditions. The FAA also looked at that and was not in favor of it, but they do want buy-in from neighboring towns. So I did speak at the meeting in a strong support of this proposal. And we are hoping that neighboring municipalities will be able to come on board. Many are in favor of this. A few are not, because it would divert some planes over there. Their locales were kind of the view that let's share in the grief and do what we can to really help mitigate, the study that was done that would propose to move this over 684. It is a significantly less residentially dense area than the current flight path. So to me, this would really be a win if we could do this for really everybody locally, and in not just in Newcastle, but in local municipalities, to get it over an area that already isn't as dense residentially. So we will give you more information on that. I have to thank everyone in town who's been still putting in your noise complaints, as well as Rob Fleischer, who's really been a great advocate for us. So thank you. I spoke earlier about kind of just being a community and community corner. And, when I moved here quite a while ago, I don't want to age myself, but, one of the things I loved about our town and still love was the real feel of community. And, we forget about it a little bit in the winter when we're all kind of holed up, and especially during COVID. But I want to make sure that, especially as we start getting out of the house, as it gets warmer in spring, that we are fostering that community spirit and really bringing back the reasons why we love our town. I'm hoping we're going to bring back our supper on Center Street that was started last year, which was a great success. We are looking at having murals painted in the downtown hamlets. And we are looking at other rec opportunities and opportunities to bring community spirit. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but there might be music involved. And we certainly want to, that's a real goal of mine. Now, we also have, just so you know, I'm looking at my phone because I took a picture of it. This weekend on April 2nd, we're having an Easter egg hunt at Gedney Park Field at 9:30 a.m. So that's great. I remember that when my kids were little. And a fishing derby is April 24th at Gedney Pond. There's going to be a road race on May 15th, and Beats and Eats, which is going to be a music and food truck event on May 21st. But there are actually going to be a lot more things. So stay tuned and read our newsletters for that information. Speaking about kind of rec and community spirit, we also have the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. And that is going to be showing also this weekend. The Nani Chen Dance Company is coming, and that is an amazing production of dazzling props, colorful costumes, mesmerizing music, and aerobatics and dance. Telling the story of the origin of the Lunar New Year. So that's exciting. If you see the Performing Arts Center, you'll see that it looks a little different. We were able to get Summit Greenfield to do some work to the outside. We have new stairs, a new planter, the fountain is gone. It looks amazing. And we're also planning to have a dedicated handicap parking lot adjacent to the center in the near future. You may have heard that the Westchester Broadway Theater is in talks with the town. Currently, we are renting to them. They are rented time to put on, they're going to be putting on $1 Million Quartet in the month of April, which is a great show. I saw it years ago on Broadway. And we are exploring a lease with them for more of a long-term lease. One of the great things about that lease is they would commit to doing infrastructure improvements within the theater, such as new lighting and sound, which will really bring us up to a state-of-the-art facility. And I'm excited to see what that has to bring. Another exciting thing that we've been doing with the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center, and I have to say, I cried last week when I got a hug from members of our Every Person is Connected committee and community, where we are doing training for adults with special needs to work in the theater, to not just usher, but eventually they're going to learn merchandising and ordering concessions and doing concessions and greeting people. And really, they get paid, and that's where they're working. And to really model it after the Prospector Theater in Connecticut, it's going to be on a much smaller scale, at least initially, but that's something that we're really committed to doing. And it's gotten phenomenal feedback from both residents who have witnessed this and also those who are working there. And it brings me a lot of joy to see this. We've been wanting to do it for a long time. It's finally working, and I'm very happy about that. Let's talk about the chap line, because I know people have been asking me about that recently. So that, for those of you who don't know, who are new to town, is a proposed path that would go from the downtown Chappaqua Hamlet basically up to Roaring Brook Road and then cross the street and be able to get into Chappaqua Crossing. That would really be in lieu of sidewalks on 117, because those are going to be difficult, if not impossible, to ever build. But the chap line is really a recreation trail. It would be great for schools. We can see kids, you wouldn't have to drive to school. Many, many kids could be able to walk to school on that line. Some do it now, but it's really kind of a mess back there right now. But it would follow our trunk line. We have consultants looking at that. It would be sort of a trails to rails. So we're looking at grants for that. People would be able to walk from their homes to the downtown Chappaqua Hamlet and then to the train station to be able to commute. We did a study, more than 400 homes could actually walk there. And now that the townhomes are starting to be built at Chappaqua Crossing, that's going to be another 100 or so homes there who could walk. That would be phenomenal. Our Greeley sports kids, the track team, could be running on that instead of running along 117, which gives me agita every time I see them. We did receive a $500,000 grant to do that work, but it's going to cost way more than that. We're waiting to hear right now on a $5 million grant. Now, for those of you who live near there, who are concerned about this, I want to be clear that I hear your concerns, and I know the town board does too. We are still going to address your concerns. This is not the end. We want to look at lighting. I know you're concerned about parking and traffic. We're still going to be looking at all of that. Safety, obviously. But it's a great opportunity for the town. We can even have kind of, city bikes, but we'll call it, I don't know, Hamlet bikes, to allow people to go up and down on that trail. It's not long, but I think it could really bring some nice vitality and allow people to walk downtown instead of drive. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh, speaking of sidewalks, Millwood sidewalks. So last week when the weather was actually not terribly cold, I went on a walk with a company called Complete Streets that is sponsored by Westchester County, and they are going to provide us a report. We walked with them from West Orchard School to Gedney, and then down along to Station Place in Millwood, with the plan being that we are going to put sidewalks there, connecting West Orchard to Gedney and then Gedney to Station Place. What Complete Streets are going to do is they're going to provide a report that we can then use for grant applications to get this done, which again would be phenomenal to be able to get people from the Millwood Hamlet to walk to Gedney Park, which is utilized, and then even for kids who live near the Millwood Hamlet to then be able to walk to school up to West Orchard. So I'm really excited about that. I've been talking fast so that I leave opportunity for questions. I think that's all I have right now that I had prepared. It was a very fast update on what's been going on. Again, just a reminder, we haven't even been here 3 months yet. So there's a lot more great stuff to come. I'm really excited about what we can do for our town and the future of our town. So thank you. And again, happy spring. And just always feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. I'm pretty available. So turning it back to you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for all of that. That was a lot more than I even thought we would get from it. Leslie Kuhn, who is another member of the league board, is monitoring our chat, and she will also have our first league question, because since we sponsor the event, we always get to ask the first question. So Leslie, you can take it away.
So Lisa, the league question for tonight really has to do with governance and how you found it. You were on the town board for a great number of years, and now you're 3 months into your role as town supervisor. What have you found the difference to be in the supervisor role as opposed to your years of service on the board?
That's a good question. And I actually didn't think it was going to be that different, but it really is. And I think it's just that as a supervisor, I'm really the person that people are looking to and kind of the first point of contact for issues, whether it be complaints or suggestions or, hopefully kudos that we're doing a good job. But I'm really the first kind of point of contact. And I get such a greater insight into the workings of our town. And I was pretty involved as a town board member, but to see it from the supervisor's seat, it's really phenomenal what our town staff does and everything we do. One of actually the best things that you don't see as a town board member, but you do as a supervisor, is I have meetings often with the Westchester Municipal Officers Association, as well as the Westchester Putnam Association of Town Supervisors. And we have a forum where we can really talk about the issues impacting all of our towns and find strategic ways to collaborate to advocate for our towns as more of a, on a global scale, which allows us to frankly get more done. And I'm building great relationships with other town supervisors and mayors in a way to really foster that collaboration so that we can really advocate for our communities. So I hope that answers.
It does. Thanks. We have some questions in our chat about the current refugee crisis, both in terms of refugees from Afghanistan and Ukrainians fleeing the horrors there. So I'm going to ask you, Lisa, but I'll also mention that I know you, Lee, work with a local organization called Reset, which works with refugees. So you might want to weigh in on this as well. So the question is, what role do you think the town can play in helping to welcome refugees? Is there a role for the town in terms of hosting families, resettlers, and anything else you wanted to say on the topic?
So that's a great question. And the town did put out a statement a couple of weeks ago, specifically with regard to the crisis in Ukraine right now and the war, in support of both our neighbors here who have friends and family there, who are still there, or who are of Ukrainian descent, as well as to, our compatriots over there. And we are hanging the Ukrainian flag in solidarity. That being said, the town's Holocaust and Human Rights Committee is not just about the Holocaust. It's also, as its name implies, about human rights. And there was a phenomenal presentation we put on about a month or so ago with Afghani refugees and speaking about that, and it was very powerful. And I do think that through specifically that organization, through that committee, they will give the town ideas about how we can best go forward. But we are urging people, not necessarily on a town basis, but individually, to yes, reach out, sponsor, be a good neighbor and a good global citizen. And anything we can do as a town, certainly there are, I don't generally as a town want to specifically say what charities you should be donating to in support, because I don't run those charities. And if anything went wrong, I don't really want to be responsible for those. But there are many amazing charities. I know people are talking about donating to Airbnbs for people who are hosting refugees in Ukraine right now. But certainly we are looking toward our Holocaust and Human Rights Committee to be educating us, and they do, for as to what we can do. But I do think, the town needs to be a good global citizen and give as much support as we possibly can.
Lee, did you have anything to add?
I'll give the plug. It's not, if people are interested, there is a community organization, and many of our faith-based, organizations here in town are involved in Reset Westchester, and you can go to our website at resetwestchester.org. And we've resettled some Afghan families in northern Westchester, not Chappaqua specifically, but we assume that we will have Ukrainian refugees at some point. So anybody who wants to get involved in that effort should go to that website, learn about that organization. And there are plenty of other groups in northern Westchester doing that work actively now. So anybody who wants to help, there's a million ways. And yeah, Lisa, if you ever have any interest, you can always just email us to find out what we're doing. So that's good too.
And, you know, one of the things I love about our town is when people are in need, we all step up. You
Mhm.
know, that's what's amazing about Newcastle. And I feel that we're going to continue to do that going forward.
Thanks. That really covers the topics that were raised in the chat, so we can give it another minute in case any of our other attendees have another topic that they didn't think you covered, although I will say personally, I
Yeah.
thought you did a wonderfully exhaustive job at covering a whole host of things that are of interest, particularly for only being 3 months into your term. So thank you really for your thorough presentation.
You know what? It's easy because I love what I'm doing for the town, and we're just a great place to live. And I know it sounds so Pollyannish, but I mean it. And you know, people say to me all the time, "How do you like being supervisor?" And I just love it because I'm so excited to see where we can go from here. So I'm happy. That's why I'm happy to share everything.
Okay, well, I think we've given everybody an opportunity and we can all now go. And Lisa, I know you were traveling, so we'll give you time to rest. But thank you so much for spending almost, oh, we actually have a question already. Timeline on finishing the park in front of Town Hall. I think where you put the new parking in and there's a, you know, whatever there.
So generally you can't plant in the winter. So we, as spring approaches, we will be doing some planting there, and you will see it will be looking a lot better.
Great. Okay. So thank you for everyone who attended. And this will be taped, so it will be up on NCCMC, I think, tomorrow. And the link will be on the League's website, and we'll post it on Facebook as well. So if somebody says to anyone, oops, I missed that, it will be available to watch. And we thank you so much for all your time and effort. And we'll probably be asking you back in another 6 months. You'll get to do it again.
I'll be happy to.
Great. Oh, and it will also, Carrie tells us, it will also be on the town homepage as well. So thank you. And as always, thank you to Newcastle Community Media Center and Carrie Krams for doing this work with us. And that's also one of the great town, you know, assets we have here is the ability to do these conversations, but then know that, you know, people can access them through NCCMC. So thank you to everyone and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.